Welcome to Beyond Dragondom, from wherever you are listening to today. The weekly episode channel for fantasy adventure stories. My name is Lesley. I am the author, the creator, and the narrator of Tales from Dragondom and Beyond, and Aisha's adventures through quantum time and space. Aisha, Portal to Dragondom, is the first in the series. I hope you enjoy the episodes as much as I enjoy writing them. If you are listening to me on my YouTube or podcast platforms and would like to leave a like, or would like to know automatically when the next weekly episode is live, I understand you can do this by pressing the follow. Shall we join Aisha now and her friends in her adventures in Dragondom and beyond? In the previous episode, Aisha had arrived in Dragondom to start her new life, to learn, to train, and to remember. Shall we join her now as her adventures continue? Aisha, Portal to Dragondom, Episode 4, Magical Moments. The two unicorns appeared around the corner. Morning, Milana. Do you wish to accompany us into the hills? The lead unicorn seemed to bow its head slightly, and I could hear its voice clearly in my mind. Going at a leisurely pace, we sat on the unicorns' backs or walked alongside or behind them as we slowly rose along what looked like a well-worn track into the nearby hills, below the craggy peaks that stood almost blue in the distance. Milana started to explain how Arianel was predominantly one landmass with 4 major seas. However, within the main sector of the land were also hidden freshwater seas that gave sustenance to all. No, they were not hidden in the sense of secret. They were either fully underground or partly underground. Many mountains and old volcanoes were dotted around, and these too had their own climates and forests, as well as rivers and streams. The water flowed down into the valleys and the underworld. The polar regions were classed as no time. They were places that the teleportation and incoming and outgoing visitors passed through. Many of these travellers were not aware that what I was seeing even existed. Others were given instructions there before coming into Arianel itself. She explained where I had found her was, in fact, one of these zones. Eons before, this had been set up for the safety of those who lived here, a means by which Arianel could be kept clear of contamination by races who may like to control the guardians who helped maintain the balance and assist in putting into place the terraformers needed on specific galactic worlds before they could be colonized with life forms, who would then take over the duties of protection of that place. We rode the unicorns into a beautiful green valley where there was a pasture of lush grass and thousands of wild flowers adding to the beautiful carpet. As we entered over a low pass, the view was breathtaking. With the valley bottom, there was a small herd of unicorns, young and old, simply enjoying the sun and grazing in total peace. As we approached, a youngster came trotting over. "Whoa, Princess! We heard you were home. Mother said she felt you coming a while ago, but I didn't believe her." Princess Melania jumped down from her mount and knelt beside the young foal, wrapping her arms around its neck and placing a kiss on the white star on its forehead, just above the bud of his tiny horn. Yes, we are home, sweet one. This is Aisha, and she has come to see us all and help to bring me and the Emerald Dragon safely home. My, haven't you grown since I last saw you? Well, actually felt you, before you were born, when I said goodbye to your mother. She looked at me and smiled. Jazorna here was due to be born just after I had to leave for the cave. Part of my gift is that I am able to talk with those soon to be. So we had met, and now we meet again, and what a beauty she has turned into. Now she stood as I slid down from the back of the unicorn mount I had been riding, and thanked her. Come, let's go and sit in a special place where you can see all this, and we can finish talking. She called hello to all that stood now with their heads facing where we were, and then led the way up a small incline to sit on a rocky outcrop overlooking the full expanse of the valley and the forested slopes that surrounded it on all three sides. My mind wandered at the peace and the beauty of all that I had seen so far. There was no noise of traffic, nor planes flying across the sky. It was as if there was no modern world as I knew it on earth. Everything was natural, and yet everything felt very real, and I felt I knew it all somehow, like déjà vu. As we sat on an outcrop of rocks that were warming in the early sun, overlooking a small valley surrounded by the beautiful, mature, deciduous forest, where the herd of the unicorns were grazing and playing, the world outside seemed a million miles away. I brought my mind back to what Milana was telling me. She was talking about the rare but present danger which occasionally threatened parts of Arianel, especially the zones nearest to no time section. While dragons could detect any darkness in any heart, and thus prevent its entry, the ones in the all that is, who had chosen a darker path, were occasionally lucky, mostly because they had found other methods on entry, without detection, and started to infect locals. There was always a group of warriors who stayed on the planet, as also there was the Elfin Kingdom, here in Arianel, with their own security, as this was an aid to all other elementals and dragons. She made me start when her monologue suddenly changed. By Zorgon! Now you are here, and the prophecy has been proven to be going into the next stage. They are bound to try something. She looked at me. Wait here, please. I won't be long. And with that she disappeared, up the rise and out of sight at the speed that seemed impossible. I knew then that I still had a great deal to learn. I closed my eyes and wished. Right now I wished more than anything to be wearing clothes that were more in keeping with running around countryside and climbing. For me, a silk-like gypsy dress and sandals was certainly not that, nor did I feel that comfortable. Oh, for a pair of jeans, or something like the jumpsuit-style clothing, with a short wrap-round skirt, like my new friend wore. Her movement told me she felt completely at ease, while I felt like a china doll afraid of breaking. I never heard her come back. I was so deep in my own inner world and watching the sheer beauty of this world around me. Come! She grabbed for my hand as she bounced across the jagged rocks like a mountain goat, from behind me. "We have to get to the stone circle down in the valley. I'll try to explain as we go." Then her words cut off, and I saw surprise on her face. "Oh, I like your suit." "Good, now you can move faster. Come on." She dived past me and bounced over the edges of the rocks as she propelled herself down the meandering path we had come up from the valley. Once only did she look back. I was confused, and looked down, expecting to see the lilac dress that I was wearing, but no dress. I was instead dressed in a black jumpsuit, similar in design to that worn by Princess Milana. My hand went to my throat, and, yes, there also it was the same. A high collar with leather-style belting, both at the collar and across the bodice, holding the flap in place to one side. It was what I had visualized when I made my wish. I almost laughed. Then suddenly I was being left behind, for she was still running and was nearly halfway down the hillside. I caught up as the slope of the land lessened, and we sped across the green field like meadow, filled with the daisies and buttercups and other beautiful flowers I had never seen before. The youngsters darted out of our way, and the adults simply moved slightly to one side so we did not collide with them in our haste. I heard a call go out to Milana, asking if she needed help. She laughed and said she had just been given permission to use the circle to get home and was eager to see everybody. The tension left the air, and all seemed right with the world again. Well, it did with the world outside of me and her, for through her grip now on my hand I could feel the tension and the worry in her, for we were as one. As we entered the trees, I picked up all the woodland life around us. Everything and everyone seemed to be alive and talking. It was like a full symphony orchestra playing in my head. We headed forward, not breaking out of the rhythm set up in the pace that we crossed the meadow, weaving between saplings, jumping over fallen tree limbs, and the entrances to rabbit burrows. Ever forward. At last, ahead, I could make out an area where the sun's rays seemed to be stronger, and could catch glimpses of the standing stones. We skidded to a halt on the edge of the tree line, and Milana dropped on to one knee and pulled me down alongside her. We waited in complete silence for several seconds, watching the stone circle. At first I thought it was my eyes. The air within the circle seemed to shimmer, as if I was looking through a heat haze in the deserts of Rondolamine. I blinked, but it made no difference, and then Milana touched my arm as she rose and started forward. By the time we reached the outer ring of stones together with the shimmering air, there was a distant hum in the air. Then, in the centre of the stone circle, 3 figures materialized. They were tall and slim in build. Their clothing was that I had seen on Milana the first time I saw her, but they also wore shiny cloaks of a silvery material that looked as thin as gossamer. One of them looked to be carrying another cloak over his arm. "Come, don't question anything. Put the cloak over your shoulders and stand next to me. Hold my hand and breathe through the move." The way she spoke, the urgency with which she instructed me, told me she was deadly serious, and I complied. For the moment, at least, it felt as though the holiday was over. The shimmering I had witnessed as we waited the arrival of our transport guide, or should I say better, our personal guard, had been the materialization of a vortex. Now we were once more within the energized field, and it gained momentum. We all of us were standing close within the stillness inside the eye. What Milana was unaware of was I was totally at home using a vortex to travel. I'd been using mine and that of myself and my twin, or eternal soul partner, for many years, even before we had become aware that we were physically within the same timeline. As the humming slowed and the spinning of the air around the walls of the vortex also reduced in speed, I knew we had reached our destination. Then they vanished, and we were standing in a similar standing stone circle, but this was in a different location. Both I and Milana were ushered forward by our minders. As we stepped out of the circle, she relaxed. Turning to those who had come to get us, she thanked each in turn, then turned to me. Aisha, please let me introduce you to the members of the security team who have just personally brought us to the Arianel. I had not anticipated having to use this method, but circumstances made it imperative we come and see the council here, and my father, without delay. This also needed to be done in a way that it would not draw attention to that fact. We will be back at the castle before dusk, and everyone will think that we have simply been out in the area sightseeing. Now she turned back to the elf who appeared to be in charge, then back to me. Please, this is Urdos. He is chief of the royal guard here in Arianel. He nodded his head. Next to him is Garneth, and lastly, my brother Vindorth. This, my trusted friends and brothers of light, is Aisha. It is she who we have been waiting for. All three nodded again, and I could feel both my mind and my heart being scanned psychically. I smiled and allowed this to happen. I knew where it was coming from, so there was no need to impose my usual walls. Satisfied, Urdos stepped forwards. Thank you, Aisha, from all of us, not only from the elf kingdom of Arianel, but from all in Arianel. I am sure that the fact that the prophecy has reached the next stage will be a relief to many outside in the all that is. However, there will also be others who will wish to stop it from continuing. May I speak freely? He looked at Milana and then at me, as if awaiting a response. Milana looked at me, as if waiting for me to answer. Me? I asked her. Yes, Aisha, you. I could see a spark of humour in her eyes. We were both aware of the changes that had kicked in both of us, at the realization that even here in Dragondom, and maybe in other areas of Arianel, there may come a time when the dark may attempt to stop things going forward. It seemed that even here things could be affected by what I was used to in my world, by what I witnessed in so many other low-dimensions. Yes, please, Urdos, speak plainly. I am aware of many things that you may not be, but also I believe there is much I must learn, or I would not have been directed to stay. For a second, they all looked confused, even Milana. It was then that I realized that my communication, coming in from those who guide me and watch over me, apart from my dragon, had shielded our conversations, and no one here was aware of that contact. Urdos hesitated for a second, as if listening to an unheard conversation. Please follow me, was the only answer I now got, and he motioned us to follow the others, and together Milana and I fell into step with them, and moved forwards towards a pergola that was set off at some distance. Surrounded by creepers, it looked as if it had been there simply as a place to sit and contemplate since the beginning of time. This, I found out, was the entrance into the central hub of the Elven Palace at Arianel, one used when the front door and being seen was not the best idea. As we had all entered, Erdos had muttered some words in a language that was new to me. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode and will join me again, Lesley Laws, at Beyond Dragondom, either on podcast or YouTube, for another weekly episode of Aisha, Portal to Dragondom. And so from me, for now, I wish you all goodbye.